Hey, this is the World Travel Sage, and this is the commentary video for the making of the Sosua Zone. And you know, the Sosua Zone was essentially about the women of Sosua and the Dominican Republic. And it's important to me that you actually know something about life for the women and girls of the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic and Latin America in general are very tough places to be women. And it's important that we talk about that. Now, what do you need to know about life for women in the Dominican Republic? The Dominican Republic has the lowest wages in Latin America, with a minimum wage of about $1 an hour. The Dominican Republic has the highest teen pregnancy rate in Latin America. It has the second highest teen pregnancy rate in the world, with an estimated 25 to 30% of girls and young women between the ages of 12 and 19 getting pregnant every single year. We are talking about 2 million girls between 12 and 19 getting pregnant every year in the Dominican Republic, in a society where wages are incredibly low and jobs are incredibly difficult to find. Now, poverty is the #1 reason why anybody turns to sex work on this planet. And I want to explain to you that the world of sex workers is a big gray area. And I want to make an important distinction. In my view, prostitutes are people who have other viable options and choose to be sex workers. Where sex workers, or working girls, as they are oftentimes called, are generally women who have almost no other viable options to survive. And they are out there taking responsibility for their lives in the best way that they can, with the only thing they have of value, their bodies, to take care of, their families. I recently spoke with a woman in the Dominican Republic, and I was asking her about her life. And she said to me, I'm 23 and I have a 10-year-old son. And I stopped her and I said, "You are 23 and you have a 10-year-old son?" And she giggled. And you see, in the Dominican Republic, that is almost normal. It is almost the norm. Now, I would like to make an important point here about these two women. You see, I asked them, why should men come here? And what does she say? She says, for work and massage. These women are here to work. They are the breadwinners, and they are bringing home the bacon for their family and children. And if you ask almost every one of these women, where is the father of your child? Where is the person who helped create that human being in your life? And they will say that he is nowhere to be found. So these women are getting impregnated at record rates from ages of 12 to 19, left with babies, and there are no men in sight helping to support or raise these children in a society where it's very tough to make ends meet. Now, in the Dominican Republic, there is intergenerational poverty and intergenerational sex workers. There are daughters of sex workers who are now sex workers. There are women who train young women to be sex workers. In many ways, being a sex worker is your best option in life if you are a young woman. And people don't realize how much economics just changes your whole view of the world. your whole view of life. For instance, people might say, why don't these girls go to college and get, a degree and get good jobs? But you have to understand, with wages being so low in the Dominican Republic, there is very little hope in going to college and getting a job. These children are not raised to, I'm going to become a doctor or an astronaut or a lawyer. The truth is that going to college will not guarantee you anything. And even though college is not so expensive in the Dominican Republic, when, you're worried about eating, to come up with money for college is, next to impossible. I spoke to one woman in the Dominican Republic, and she told me that she'd got a job. And I said, wow, that's great, you got a job. It can be really tough to find a job. And she said, well, it's really not that great. And I said, why? And she said, because I get paid so little. And I asked her for the details. And she said, I work in a shoe factory, and I work a 40-hour week, and I take home $38. So let me repeat that for all of you. She works a 40-hour week in a shoe factory, and she takes home a check for $38 a week. Now, the standard of living in some respects in the Dominican Republic is low. In general, in Latin America, housing is cheap. But that is really about it. Okay? I mean, yes, car insurance and certain things like that are relatively inexpensive. But if you go to the supermarket in the Dominican Republic, prices are almost the same as some places in the United States. So while there are aspects of life that are inexpensive, unless you can really live a third world living with your family, there is no way you're going to be able to survive on a $40 a week check. Now, in the United States and in European countries, there are social welfare programs that take care of many, many things in life that we just really don't even think about that much. How many 19-year-old young women in the United States or in European countries have to work a job to, take care of grandma and mom? And I don't mean a little bit, I mean completely. How many 19 or 20-year-old women are completely responsible for taking care of their parents? You know how many? Almost none. There are virtually no social programs to help single mothers. There are no social programs to help the elderly. When your mother or grandmother gets too old to work, you know what? It is the responsibility of the children and grandchildren to pay for housing and food and health care for your family members, okay? And so, there's no jobs, and the only viable option you have in life to help pay for grandma's operation is to go out and sell your body. That is the reality of life for these people. Now, a lot of people in this world want simple answers for big problems. Why is there prostitution on the planet? Why is there sex trafficking? And people want to say things like, oh, well, there's prostitution because of sex tourism. And nothing could be further from the truth. Saying that prostitution is caused by sex tourism is saying that there are fish in the ocean because of fishermen. It is simply absurd. The reason why prostitution on this planet happens and the reason why sex trafficking happens is because people are incredibly desperate to survive. And because big companies like Apple and Nike and other big companies pay so little around the world. They do not invest in the communities where they do business, and we expect very little of them as consumers. I have seldom ever heard anybody say, a few aware people I've heard talk about Apple's track record for treating employees or, around the world. But in general, I hear very little about that People like cool, slick products, and then they don't really think about who are the people slaving away to assemble and make those cool, slick products that make them feel sexy. So, what would I like to see? And are there any easy answers? Well, economy building and poverty fighting are not things that are going to happen overnight. I was very inspired by Black Lives Matter, and I came up with the idea of Chicas Lives Matter because I care a great deal about the plight of women on this planet. So I bought the domain for chicaslivesmatter.com and chicaslivesmatter.org. I don't really have a lot of money to create websites or to pay people to make websites, and I have made a website for chicaslivesmatter.com. Please check it out. It's basic, but it's basically about calling to attention the lives of sex workers and of young women on this planet who have very few options to survive. And what would I like to see? What would I like to see? I would like to see giant corporations like Apple held accountable by consumers. I would like every corporation to have to show us a report card before we buy their products. On the door of every Apple store, I would like to see what Apple is doing with 5 or 10% of its profits to help fight poverty and help build economies and invest in people around the world. The fact is, Apple has $327 billion parked in an offshore bank account. It would be no sweat off the back of Apple to take some of that money and invest it in its employees in China and wherever else the supply chain, those products come from. And every other corporation on the planet should do the same. Now, that may not solve all the poverty problems on this planet, but first we should start with the people who have money and with the people who are actually working jobs. So what would I like Chicas Lives Matter to become? I'd like it to become an international movement to help support young women around the world, whether they are sex workers or not. And I would like to see us all think about how much we take for granted in countries like the United States. Here people oftentimes have no problem dropping $22 on a plate of food at a nice restaurant and buying a $14 glass of wine. My friend Milady, she's a young Venezuelan woman who has 2 children and begs on the street in Cartagena. She could live for a week on, that $22 plate of food and that $14 glass of wine and feed her 2 children. So I would like to see people take less for granted in their lives and help take care of people who have a lot less and who oftentimes have, at no fault of their own, being born poor in the Dominican Republic or Colombia or Venezuela should not be a reason why your life should be terrible and you should have to suffer, especially as, a young woman. So, awareness.